and it will be Saturday night in Death Valley.
Helm, he's running over people! Oh, you Herschel Walker!
They're not going to keep him off the field tonight!
Oh, it is good to be back on set here on Sweet Home SEC, brought to you by the Great American Sports Network. Clint Schweitzer, Noah Gronder coming back at you for another season of college football, another season of Sweet Home SEC. So pull up a chair, grab yourself a cup of sweet tea, and let's do this because college football is underway. We are heading into week 3 here, and we have a big show coming up here because our friend Tim Brando from Fox Sports is going to be joining us, talking about all things college football, the SEC, everything involved. It's time to get going.
Lincoln Riley is what we're going to be talking about a little bit. Oklahoma, Ohio State. Oklahoma comes. They finally win one of these big games. Now that Bob Stoops has left, the curse is gone. Big game Bob's gone. Lincoln Riley gets it done.
Well, don't forget our sponsor, Stadium Crashers. It is the ultimate SEC documentary. This was a couple years ago. We were able to do this, and it is currently part of our fundraiser for our next SEC documentary, which will be called Saturday Supremacy. So, stadiumcrashers.com. You can get a copy of the special edition DVD, as you can see here.
Yes, and another way we're fundraising is we've got over 60 designs of custom t-shirts that we've made, always creating, always coming up with new stuff. That's dreamtshirts.weebly.com, and Weebly is Weebly. Buy a shirt, and if you don't see something or don't see anything that you like, you can contact us. Create your own design. We'll work with you, and we'll get that shirt right out to you.
Don't worry, we're going to be here. We got your back for the entirety of the college football season. And you can download this for free on iTunes. Great American Sports Network has all of our shows. We do lots of them. So here on YouTube or on iTunes, we appreciate you downloading. We appreciate you hitting the like button,
subscribe on YouTube.
All of
watching it. GASN Sports Network. Yes.
And guys, it's with Tim Brando. We're going to be talking about the Mizzou Purdue game. Tim Brando's been on the call for the Purdue Boilermakers through the first 2 weeks. And meanwhile,
who better to ask? Really, no one. So
as they come to Missouri here, a struggling Missouri team, we're going to be talking to him about that. Missouri coming off a 31-13 loss to South Carolina, and a very disappointing one. A chance for maybe Barry Odom and this team to make a statement. They sure did, but that statement was not the one they wanted to make, and that is that they may still be at the bottom of the barrel in the SEC, definitely in the East right now, because Missouri's defense, where we're at, it was putrid in week 1 against Missouri State. Played a lot better, a little more inspired. The offense tended to sputter a little bit. Drew Lock threw some interceptions.
That's what Damani Cross was saying before he got fired. We played a little bit more inspired. Come on, just don't.
Apparently not inspired enough as a defensive coordinator who really was just a figurehead. Barry Odom's calling these plays. We're going to ask Tim Brando about that, what he thinks of the firing of Cross, the timing of it. It seems kind of odd a couple weeks into the season.
The defense did play inspired. Jake Bentley didn't go off. He didn't have a great game, a nice rising quarterback for the South Carolina Gamecocks. But he wasn't super impressive. He didn't light up the defense or anything. It was Deebo Samuel, the 97-yard kickoff return for a touchdown, and then the one rush he had, 25 yards, touchdown, that opened the floodgates, and Missouri just couldn't gain their footing. Drew Lock 2 interceptions. The offense kind of shocked me a little bit, coming back down to earth after that first game against Missouri State.
Yeah, Missouri's offense at this point seems to be a bit of fool's gold, performing big against subpar competition. In the SEC, I think Drew Lock has only has a very subpar record, and that's the entirety of this offense has not been able to step up in these games. And if that be Jamon Moore, if that be running back Demaria Crockett's going to be your best player, but he was injured in the second half.
Yeah,
and so that's going to be something to look for from Missouri going forward.
More of a load on Ish Witter now.
It's a game against Purdue that Missouri is really needs to win. It's going to be a tough game. And without further ado, we want to bring on our guest this week. He is Fox Sports play-by-play man, Tim Brando. Tim, welcome to the show. We always appreciate it, man. You are my favorite in the business when it comes to college football play-by-play, and I'm not just saying that. You've had the Purdue Boilermakers twice already this season. They are coming to Columbia this game. What do you see out of Purdue so far, and what do you think it's going to be like when they come to Columbia on Saturday?
Well, they're a very good football team. I mean, Purdue, I would just tell you right now, is arguably the most improved college football team in the country, coming off a 3-win season. In fact, gosh, I think in the last 4 years under Coach Hazel, they were 9-39. And Jeff Brom might be, at least among the Division I FBS schools that are Power 5 schools, he might be the greatest hire of the year. I'm thoroughly impressed with what I've seen. They're a team that I think probably doesn't have all the tools right now that Jeff Brom needs to lead the country in scoring, which is what his team at Western Kentucky did last year. But defensively, they're surprisingly good. Nick Holt, their defensive coordinator, has done a tremendous job. Very strong up the middle. Lorenzo Neal, Eddie Wilson, really strong up the middle. The down lineman. The linebacker, Marcus Bailey, is probably one of the most underrated outside linebackers. Number 21, keep an eye on him when they play against Missouri. And I think from an offensive standpoint, their tight ends are probably their greatest strengths. Herdman and Hopkins, 88 and 89. Those guys are really big-time go-to guys, and they're not just run-of-the-mill tight ends. I mean, they can go deep on you, so they've got some speed to go along with their size and their quality hands. They've got a collection of wide receivers that are rather nondescript from a talent standpoint, a group of transfers, but they do have a freshman possession receiver that's really a gamer, a freshman from right there in West Lafayette, went to Catholic high school there, and he only got one Division I scholarship offer, and it was at Purdue. Jackson Anthrop. He played very well against Louisville, and is, I think, probably from a wide receiver standpoint, the favorite target of either Elijah Stendelar or David Blau, the two quarterbacks that will both play. I mean, you'll see probably a half and half. Whether Stendelar gets the start as he has the last two games, I don't know, because Blau had a remarkable performance, and he's the junior and the team captain and leader. Maybe after the way he performed against Ohio University the other night, he might get the start. But you'll see both of those quarterbacks. Stendelar with a stronger arm, but Blau probably better command and certainly has great leadership skills. This is going to be a very tough game for Missouri, particularly coming off that disappointing loss with South Carolina, because, as I said, Purdue is a team on the come. They're believing, and I think that this new coach, Jeff Brom, is special, very, very special.
Well, Tim, one game that's kind of intrigued me throughout the first 2 weeks of the college football season is Oklahoma-Ohio State. You've got Lincoln Riley there, the young coach. Oklahoma always seems to have the talent to kind of rival these big games and these great teams. But big game, Bob Stoops just couldn't get it done. In comes Lincoln Riley, and what do you know? They win that big game. I just kind of want to get your view and kind of your thoughts on the football landscape and what's intrigued you so far through the first 2 weeks.
I'm not surprised that Oklahoma won the game. I had Ohio State last week in my rankings number one, but I also picked Oklahoma to cover the number, which was, I think, was 7.5. I think Baker Mayfield is a difference maker, and I think he's probably put himself, along with Lamar Jackson, in probably the catbird seat for a potential run to the Heisman. Certainly Sam Darnold is in that conversation from USC as well. But that was a magnificent performance against an Ohio State team that's struggling in its secondary. When I saw Indiana, Jeff Legal light them up for a lot of yardage in that opener, I thought Oklahoma had a pretty good chance of winning the game at the Horseshoe. But to win it going away the way they did was certainly surprising. But what it did, I think, was send shockwaves through the college football landscape that the Big 12, which has been sort of a punch line for the Power 5 conferences, now suddenly the Big 12 looks really legit. TCU coupled with that win against Arkansas, and you've got Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, TCU at the very least looking really strong right now as potential teams that hang around for a while and potentially make a run to the college football playoff.
Absolutely, and I think that you're looking right now at the Big Ten, and aside from that Ohio State game, maybe as a conference that's rivaling the ACC right now. And we don't know where the SEC is yet. It may wind up third in this thing, but I want to look at your game you got this weekend, of course, Nebraska and Northern Illinois. What do you make of the Huskers so far? Losing a shootout, it looks like they were out of that game. They came back to make it a game at Eugene, and then nearly losing at home to Arkansas State. The defense hasn't been there for the Huskers so far. What do you see out of this game that you've got coming up with Spencer Tillman this weekend?
Well, Well, they make by the way, Les Miles is going to make his debut with us.
Yes, I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah.
That's huge.
This coming Saturday, yeah. We gave him a little warm-up time, a little rehearsal time in the fourth quarter at West Lafayette, and he'll join us. He's going to do probably a handful of games for us this year with Spencer and myself, so we're looking forward to having him. Is in great shape. I mean, they've got great skilled position players, both at wide receiver and at running back. I'll be interested. I noticed in the 2-deep that was just sent out today, Trey Bryant was on the 2-deep as the starting tailback. He injured his knee in the game, but apparently he is listed as questionable right now for whether he'll be able to go or not. Now, they've got 3 or 4 other guys that are all accomplished that can run the football, but Bryant is the guy that they have heavy expectations for this season. And for them to compete against Wisconsin in the Big Ten West, I think they're going to need a healthy Trey Bryant soon. Now, they may be able to get away without playing him this week. We'll have to see. Tanner Lee, if he doesn't get rushed and sacked as often as he did, and particularly in that last drive, the pass interceptions he threw were usually ones that were impacted by either being hurried or by being hit with his arm moving forward and the ball flying as a flailing wounded duck. But when he's got time to get rid of it quickly, and that's what their offense is all about, he can be devastating. I think along with Jared Stidham and probably Will Greer of West Virginia, we're talking about, the best transfer quarterbacks in the country. So he's special. Keep an eye on that kid. But defensively, Bob Diaco coming over to be the new defensive coordinator is switching to a 3-4, and it's pretty obvious that some of these guys that are trying to get used to, not playing with their hand in the ground and moving down to the linebacker, they're getting accustomed to the change, and they've struggled a little bit with it. So it's going to take a little bit of time. They need this game as a really quality warm-up for them before they, get a little bit tougher into their schedule. They have the meat of their schedule coming up at the end of the month when they play at Illinois, and then they've got Ohio State and Wisconsin shortly thereafter. The Wisconsin game will be at their place, which matters. But I do think Mike Riley's team has a chance to still have a very good season. And the way they came back to that game, outscoring Oregon 21-0 in the second half, that's something to me. But their defense has got to button it up and keep the explosive plays from happening. There were, I think, 7 plays of 20 yards or more in that game against Oregon. Now, Northern Illinois is not Oregon, we know that. But Northern Illinois is not a bad football team either. So they've got to get a lot better in this football game Saturday from a defensive standpoint if they're going to be the kind of team that I think the expectations were this year, that they could compete with Wisconsin for the Big Ten Western Division.
Yeah, we will be watching and listening as you give the call. Another team down in your neck of the woods has a game this week, LSU against Mississippi State. Now, you sat down with LSU coach Ed Orgeron a few weeks ago. I kind of wanted to ask you how that went, maybe some stuff off tape that you guys talked about. I saw just recently how Ed Orgeron sent a letter to the LSU band just talking about how they're one family, they're coming together. This is a home opener. So kind of what were your thoughts sitting down with Ed Orgeron?
Well, I think he has a chance to be one of the lead stories in the history, not of just LSU football, but of college football altogether. I mean, here's a guy that when he came out of South Lafourche High School down in Cajun country, and when I say Cajun country, I mean well south of Baton Rouge.
Wow.
Well south of Baton Rouge. He was intimidated by even being on campus. He lasted about 2 weeks in 1977 and went home homesick. And then finally his friend from high school, Bobby Hebert, called him and told him he should come up to North Louisiana and play in Natchez at Northwestern State. And he got his coaching career going shortly after that as an assistant strength coach at Arkansas. And then he's just been a workaholic his whole life. But when he had that coaching opportunity that he had at Ole Miss, he failed miserably. He addressed that problem and reinvented himself while going back to USC a second time. After working for Pete Carroll, he went back and worked for Lane Kiffin. And then when Kiffin was let go and he had become the interim head coach then. While he had success, it wasn't enough, and he wound up losing his job at SC again, and then went into coaching exile for a year, only to have Les Miles hire him as an assistant coach. And it's almost a rags to riches to rags back to riches story. And no one will question his work ethic, but more than anything, what impresses me is his candid approach to the position now, that he's a CEO, that he's going to surround himself with the best possible assistant coaches. In Dave Aranda, I think he's got the best young defensive coordinator in the country, and in Matt Canada, certainly one of the hottest commodities among offensive coaches. So, look, BYU, they dismantled. Chattanooga, in a lot of respects, doesn't count. We'll see how they play on the road with this new offense of theirs at Mississippi State, who looks awfully good early, and with Nick Fitzgerald as a truly outstanding quarterback that's pretty mobile and can get a lot accomplished. This will be a real test for LSU, and to see really where that offense is. Etling is a serviceable quarterback, but a quarterback that couldn't start at Purdue and wound up taking over for Brandon Harris a year ago. I'm not sure that he's the kind of quarterback that can take you to the promised land, but in this offense that Matt Canada has, they became a very efficient team with Peterman at quarterback over at Pittsburgh a year ago. If he can work similar magic, maybe LSU will be good enough to challenge Alabama as the season wears on. Their defense is incredible. There's no denying that. While they're young, they're still holding people to very little yardage, if any. But I don't know that they've really been tested yet by really strong, skilled people. BYU doesn't have any real game breakers, and certainly Chattanooga doesn't either. So we'll know a lot more about LSU after this game they've got coming up at Starkville, no doubt about it.
Well, you mentioned Brandon Harris. I was wondering if you've seen him at North Carolina and how he's looking impressive so far. Where was that at his time at LSU?
Yeah, he needed a quarterback whisperer, coach to work with him. It's kind of a shame for Brandon that he missed out on the chance to play under Matt Canada. But
yeah,
look, an address change sometimes is helpful, for everybody. And I think that Larry Fedora was just what the doctor ordered for him. He's sharing time with the left-handed quarterback, Surratt, over there at North Carolina. They've lost a couple of games, but offensively, they've looked good. And Brandon, played a very good second half against Lamar Jackson last week in that loss to Louisville. But listen, it's early. It's still very early. I keep telling people, don't start reading too much into what we're seeing. I'm hearing Georgia fans today talk about signature win for Kirby Smart. I'm like, really? This was a Notre Dame team that went 4-8 last year. You barely beat them. Really? We've come to the point now where Georgia beating a Notre Dame team that's coming off a 4-8 season is now considered a signature win? Please, give me a break.
And without Deshaun Kaiser?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, exactly.
Before we let you go, Tim, you've been so gracious with your time, as you always are, and we thank you so much. We know you're very busy this time of year, but you talked about the Purdue Boilermakers as a team on the rise. They're coming in here to play the Missouri Tigers. You talked about what a great coaching move that Purdue made. Coach Barry Odom from Missouri is just flat out struggling, firing defensive coordinator Damani Cross earlier this week. What do you make of this Missouri team? I don't know if you've gotten a chance to see any of them, but you've obviously are very high on Purdue. Missouri's opening as an 8-point favorite in this game, which to me the wrong team's favored. What do you see from Missouri so far, and can they win this game against Purdue and give Barry Odom some sort of momentum? Because right now he doesn't have any.
I wish I could paint a good picture for you. I had confidence. I had confidence in their offense with Locke. I think a lot of him as a quarterback. But these last couple of performances, both the yards and touchdowns that were given up in the first game and then losing the way they did to South Carolina this time around. And, for Odom, for Damani Cross to be gone this quickly, that looks like panic setting in. I don't know. I mean, I'm not in the footprint right now of Missouri football. I like Coach Odom. I do. But when you pull the plug this quickly on someone that not only, you know well, but you really like, then that looks like you're pressing the panic button. And it does not bode well, either, in my opinion, short or long term for this season for Missouri football. when the program got started last year, the strength of the team was its defense. It had some pass rush. I don't see that pass rush as often now in what little I have seen of the season thus far. And I'm going to tell you, Purdue is probably one of the most undervalued, underrated teams. Again, based on their record a year ago, you'd think this game would fall to Missouri. But, I'm going to tell you, I've seen Purdue up close, and unless they get caught looking ahead, the only thing that really that Missouri's got going for them in this game is that next week, it's already been announced today, Purdue-Michigan is going to be on Fox. Now, I'm not doing the game. I'll be out to do Washington and Colorado on the 23rd, which is a great game, a rematch of the Pac-12 title game. I'll be doing that game late, 10 o'clock Eastern time with Spencer next week. But that game will be on Fox, Purdue and Michigan, and I guarantee you the people at Purdue have got to be just gaga over the fact that they're going to get this much exposure this soon in the season. So they're a young team with a new young coach. Maybe they get caught looking ahead to Michigan, and Missouri can take advantage of it. Who knows? We'll see if it shakes out that way.
Well, Tim, if I'm hearing you correctly, if Missouri gets the win this weekend, we can call it a signature win in the Barry Odom era, right?
Well, if Georgia can call beating a team from Notre Dame that was 4-8 a year ago and just go gaga almost a sign bomb show today, yeah, I guess so. It's a signature win.
We're just throwing them around out here.
We need something to go gaga for here in the state of Missouri, Tim. We need something to go gaga. Well, I'll tell you what, Tim, keep seeing the pictures on Twitter and then on Facebook of you and the grandchild. What a cutie! I know you do a little bit of spoiling down there. As every time we talk to you, you're usually heading to or from from the grandchild's house. So we want to give you time to go do that this week. And we'll be watching, of course, as Nebraska takes on Northern Illinois coming up here. And thank you so much for your time. As always, Tim, we appreciate it.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, I've got 2 of them now. I've got 2 grandbabies and inside of a year, Wilma Scarlett and little Brando Cruz. And it sure balances things. It's maybe the greatest time of my life. So
keeping you busy, but it's a good busy.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's right.
Tim, thanks so much. We'll catch up again down the road and have a good call here this weekend.
Thank you, fellas. Anytime.
Always a pleasure. Always an honor. Thanks for the time.
Thanks a lot to Tim Brando, our guy when it comes to covering college football. He is the best in the business. To me, when it comes to play-by-play guys in college football, he's second to none. And good perspective. He really likes Purdue coming into this. A lot of other good topics coming from that. But moving on, in the SEC, probably the game of the week is Tennessee-Florida. Where are they going to play this game? Hurricane Irene is really affecting things. It's affecting people's lives, and it's also trickling down into sports, where now they're thinking about moving this game. By the time this airs, they probably will have figured this out, but looking in Atlanta, some alternative sites for Tennessee-Florida. Florida has absolutely owned this series until last year when Tennessee was able to get that win. I don't really know what I've seen from either team so far. I can't really get a good gauge on what either team is.
Florida can't find a quarterback, so I'm just going to have to go with Tennessee by default. They're just throwing guys, no. And they keep just a carousel. Quarterback carousel is all I can say about Florida right now. Their defense kind of gave up a bunch against Michigan. Now that's to be expected. It is Michigan. Will Spate, not too impressive as a quarterback, but they had their way with Florida.
Well, someone that might find themselves on the hot seat is Arkansas coach Brett Bielema.
Yeah.
You want to talk about a dire situation after a subpar finish a year ago, losing to Missouri, losing the bowl game the way they did, giving up big leads. They come out and just lay an egg against TCU. Brett Bielema, a big coup for Arkansas when they brought him in. All of a sudden, not looking like the guy that's going to get the Hogs to that next level in the SEC West.
No, you didn't really see a lot from them out of their run game. Obviously, they're not always a great passing team. They rely on the Hogs, the offensive linemen, their run game, a decent defense, but nothing was working for them. Nothing was working for Brett Bielema. You felt like maybe this was a year that they could kind of take a step forward. They're always just right on that edge, teetering. Are they for real? Are they not? And this year it looks like they're not even going to be on that edge. They're falling off the cliff, brother. They are in serious trouble down there.
Well, it's time for our biggest winners and losers from college football week 2, and we're going to start with me. I usually pick the winners. Nebraska and Noah picks the losers. For me, my biggest winner this week, Baker Mayfield and the Oklahoma Sooners, making an absolute statement. You mentioned it before. Lincoln Riley, he's our age. This is a guy that's 34 years old, yes, going down to Columbus and just putting one on Urban Meyer. Lincoln Riley Baker Mayfield with over 380 yards passing, putting the OU flag straight down into the ground at on the O logo.
Was there a sign of things to come with that? Because immediately as he stuck it in the ground, it fell right over, and they kind of had to pick it up again. And
it is field turf. It's nothing really, nowhere for it to really go.
They should have planned that better, but I'm sure they didn't expect to win the game. Enough of big losses with big game Bob Stoops.
Your loser this week.
My loser, I'm going to stay in that same game, and I'm going to go with Urban Meyer. This is a coach that apparently needs to keep his nose on his own face. Going after Tom Herman in Texas, Tom Herman saying he can't sprinkle magic fairy dust on his players that really aren't his. He's saying, this isn't on me. This is these players. I had nothing to do with this. This is not on me. This is on the players. Now, Urban Meyer going after him, he needs to keep his nose on his own face and his own playbook on his own team, because you saw what happened when he didn't. He goes nose around other people's mess, and he gets killed against Oklahoma and Baker Mayfield.
A lot of people don't really mind seeing some plight for the Ohio State University, and that even goes for me, someone that's not exactly the biggest Oklahoma lover in the world, but something about that just kind of felt not so bad. And I'll tell you what,
they've had enough big games lost. It's good to see him come up and take somebody else down in Ohio State and Urban Meyer.
Well, a feature we're going to be implementing each week as we run through our topics here on Sweet Home SEC is our Screech Powers Oops Moment of the Week. You remember lovable Screech Powers, the lovable nerd from Saved by the Bell who could never quite do anything right? We're going to be looking for plays that just stand out as maybe ones that things went wrong, things went horribly awry, and how could we do any other play this week than the infamous 3rd and 93 from Louisiana Tech and Mississippi State from this week. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this. Just can't get your hands on the ball. Oops! Well, there you have it. You saw it right here. Our Screech Powers Oops Moment of the Week. Can't wait for those going forward. Noah, it is just great to be back on set. It's great to be in a place where, really that we thrive. The place that we belong. Right here on set at the Great American Sports Network doing Sweet Home SEC. We also have an NFL show called Not For Long. Look for that. Our website, gasnsports.com. It's all there. It's all archived. Check it out. Of course, our documentary, Stadium Crashers. Pick up a copy.
New documentary that's going to be coming out in around 2019, probably. Saturday Supremacy, the ultimate SEC football experience. We're going to be going to games this time, not just crashing the stadiums, taking in the culture, interviews. So definitely stay tuned for that. Help us fundraise, stadiumcrashers.com. Buy a copy of this great documentary, and dreamtshirts.weebly.com.
Find a t-shirt. It really helps us. We design tons of them for your pleasure. Find something that works. We've got it all from sports and music and movies, pop culture. It's all there. And we want to implore you guys to follow us on Twitter. Give us your feedback at GASN Sports. We always appreciate it. If you got a game, you got something you want us to cover, hit us up. We will look into doing that for you. You've got a guest you would like us to get in touch with.
Want us to back on that certain team more, another topic, hit us up. We will make it part of the show.